Student A and student B, they both have the same grades. They both went to the same exact university. They had the same professors. But student A can actually express themselves with confidence. Student B, on the other hand, really is scared and is hesitative on how they talk about themselves. Who do you think will get the job? They both have the same grades. Their resumes are almost the same. But because student A can express themselves, they are the ones who are going to get the job. So today, we are going to talk about how do we make all our students student A's so that they all can not only ace it, but they can get that job, improve their employability, and they can boost their career trajectories. That's why we are all here. And coronavirus has had some impact. In fact, people are no longer interacting face to face. So before, when we trained our students how to give a nice handshake, how to smile, how to convey warmth, all of those things are now going to change at least for the next 6 to 12 months. People are not interacting face to face, but because of work from home, people are communicating over video calls like this. You might be sitting in your kitchen right now. You might have your family member in the same room. Maybe they're cooking. Maybe your children are with you sitting on the dining room while you're busy on Zoom attending the last meeting of the day. This has become the reality of today. And now 88% of organizations have encouraged or even required their employees to now work from home. So what do we do to change this behavior? What do we do to adapt to this 21st century communication? Before I dive in, I'm going to show you a video. Watch it.
Scandals happen all the time. The question is, how do democracies respond to those scandals?
And what will it mean for the wider region? I think one of your children has just walked in. I mean, shifting sands in the region. Do you think relations with the North may change?
I would be surprised if they do. My apologies.
What's this going to mean for the region?
My apologies. South Korea's policy choices on North Korea have been severely limited in the last 6 months to a year.
Why did I show you guys that video? Aside from it just being fun, there's some learning that we all can take from this video. This video teaches us what does good communication look like when you're working from home. So if you can go back to the chat box, tell me one thing that this person actually did well and one person this person can improve on. And I'll show you the face again. What do you think this person is doing great when they're communicating from home? What can we all learn from this person? And what is one thing that we would definitely change? He's composed, expression that's amazing. He's dedicated to his work. Good one things. Dressing formal, this is actually very important. It doesn't matter if I'm working from home. I should not be in my pajamas right now because I'm talking to a formal audience like yourself. I should be dressed as though I was in person meeting you. So dressing is also very, very important. Tell me things that we can improve. One idea that I would say we can improve is, if you know you're working from home, if you're in an important meeting, maybe tell your family members that, hey, I'm going to be in an important meeting. Is it okay if you don't distract? Can I lock the room? So yes, ensure the surrounding was closed, right? You can close the door before starting an interview. Imagine this was a real job interview. What would have happened? I'm really glad you guys, these are beautiful answers. So let's talk about communication skills, right? In remote settings. Imagine if this person was in a real job interview, because this is what's happening today. If you are a student graduating now, or if you are already graduated looking for a new career, this is the reality. This photo, what you see right now, is how people are going to be doing job interviews. And I like this photo because it has a great setup and great tips on how one can be better. And there are a few tips here. The first tip that I really want to mention first is smile. Do you see how this person put a sticky note with a nice smile? We all forget to smile. When I'm looking at this video call, I'm seeing half people's faces like this. I encourage you to smile. Smiling is so good. Imagine I'm face to face with you. If you're serious, I'm going to be serious. And if I'm serious, everyone else is going to be serious. And when people are serious, then it's hard to build trust. It's hard to communicate your ideas. So number one thing, when you're teaching people how to communicate in the 21st century, make sure you tell them, don't forget to smile. The second thing you're seeing, which you have already mentioned, is he's dressed up formally. He's in a suit, and that is very important. The other thing he has is like two screens. Depending on your line of work, maybe you need two screens where one, you have your questions, the other place you're talking about your video. Fourth tip is you're looking at the camera. A lot of times, what happens is our cameras first are not at eyesight. Right now, if you look at my camera, it's at the level of my eyes. Many times people might have their cameras here. It's down here. Sometimes people's cameras are up here, they're looking like this. But no, best practice in today's environment is to have your camera straight at eye level, that you're looking at the crowd and you're staying around 2 feet apart. So I'm not too far away from the camera and I'm not too close also. You want to be 2 feet apart from the camera where your shoulders are halfway in the thing. This is again best practice as you're interacting now in the 21st century communication. And the last thing I would mention is good lighting. It is so hard if people communicate and they can't see you clearly. Right now, if you're seeing is the window is in front of me, so the light is coming on my face. Many times people might communicate where it's like this, where the light is behind and you can't see the face properly. So a great tip to talking in today's time is having your light in front of you so people can see exactly what you're doing, your facial expressions as well. Here are some great tips. Now, all of this might mean that your role as educators has changed. And I want us to think of this for just 1 minute. How does all of these things that I mentioned actually redefine your role as educators? What do you need to do? I think it's a great time to reset, great time to think of technology, great time to think of ways we can change and adapt to today's world. What are you planning on doing in order to make your students better prepared for the world moving forward? So go back to your chat box. Tell me, what are you thinking? Yes, we all need to reinvent. Tell me more specifically. How are we all reinventing? How are we redefining your role? Are you even ready? So just go to the chat box, just type something. I like that answer, Preeti. You need to plan your online classes in advance with materials and videos. You need to be a better facilitator. You need to blend your teaching and learning, right? Sometimes you can give them some virtual courses, but in times you need to bring some more in-person, virtual, face-to-face over Zoom. Arrange for flipped classes like what we're doing right now. It's almost like a flipped class. I have some presentation materials, but I have 60 people who are learning with me and I need that interaction, right? So some of these things that I'm doing are some of the best practices to bring up that kind of interaction in your classes. I love that. Plan to teach using new technology. Great. Effective use of time. I'm making sure that I don't hit more time than I need for this thing. And you're very right. Students are now learning from home. Imagine you have children from the first grade to college students. They are working from home. This is like one of the world's largest experiments of learning and working from home. In fact, even Coursera, which is one of the leading learning education platforms, online virtual platforms, mentioned that within the first 2 weeks of the pandemic, 900 colleges reached out to them, and 300 of them signed up for online courses for their students. This is the kind of world we are in, and we really need to adapt, make sure that our messaging is crisp, it's clear, it's interesting. And we need to leverage tools. So some of the tools that we know is like Microsoft Teams or Zoom or WebEx. These are great tools. Other tools, what are some of the other tools? And one of them could be Ori as well, the thing that I mentioned, where you bring the human and you bring artificial intelligence together. You want to blend your learning, right? You want to make sure that if your students can improve their communication skills, the best way to do that is if you as educator sets up one-on-one time with them. If you have your 30 minutes, you have 20 students, with each student you can do 30 minutes. But we all don't have that kind of time. So how can we bring in artificial intelligence to help our students? And I'm going to give one example. One example where a tool like Ori can really come in and coach your students. So imagine that you are talking about job interviews. In a job interview, one of the things that you get asked the first question is, tell me about yourself. Now you can tell all your students to answer that question, or you can teach them to go into a tool like Ori. And I'm going to do this live demo. Whoever is making annotations on the screen, I would request you not to do that. This is going to be distracting for all the other participants. I'll go into the tool like Ori. I'm going to hit a recording. And I'm going to answer that question, which is asked in every interview question. Tell me about yourself. Hello, sir. My name is Danish. I am originally from Pakistan. I grew up in Tanzania. And I studied mechanical engineering at Drexel University here in Philadelphia. And I'm looking for a new role to work in your company as an autonomous vehicle engineer to design, future cars that can actually be self-driving so that today we can save lives and we can save a lot of time. Thank you. Imagine that was my test take. I am interviewing and I'm practicing. Now, if you have a human like yourself as an educator, you might be giving people their feedback. Like, hey, you had too many filler words like, Or you can now leverage artificial intelligence and give that kind of coaching to your people, whether that's 5 people or 1,000 students. You can do this today remotely and in a very scalable fashion where they can get real deep insights from an artificial intelligence. As you can see, there's no human involved here. I got this feedback within 5 seconds and some coaching as well. Or I told me that I spoke too slow. Maybe I need to speak a little bit faster. My clarity, my enunciation was 84%. Maybe I need to open my mouth more, enunciate better. My energy volume was yellow. I could have increased my volume a little bit. In terms of confidence, not too shabby. And conciseness was good. My average sentences were not too fast or not too long, I mean. So this is what I mean by bringing in AI. When you're looking at today's world, and there are so many tools out there. Here's just one example of one tool that you can take your communication skills, this 21st century communication skills, and expand it even further by using AI. I created this tool because I personally went through my fear and my own journey of improving this skill. And I feel like anyone, anywhere in the world can improve on this skill. And if they do, they can not only boost their employability, they can not only increase their career trajectory, but they can just be good human beings who can be better at their relationships. And with that, I'll open it up to questions and answers and hear feedback from you all. Thank you. If you have any questions, just go into the chat box and just type your question. Or even feedback. If you have any feedback for the session, please let us know. So Dr. Vivek asked if there's any other AI tools. Let's talk about just tools, right? I think one other person mentioned tools like Edmodo, Kaizala. Other tools include Kahoot. I know a lot of students like to use Kahoot, which is an interactive way of quizzing your participants. So Kahoot would be great. Miss Lakshmi Narayan said, how is ORI different from others? What would be the other thing that you're comparing it to? So if you're looking at speech coaching, the comparison of ORI would be doing this in person, virtually or in person. So in terms of that, the difference would be people can do it by themselves. Karthik mentioned, what is your suggestion for those who feel a language barrier? That is true. If you are, English is a barrier for you, then before you try and improve your 21st century communication skills, the first thing to do is become more confident in your English. The best way to do that would be, there are tons of classes online, there are many YouTube videos, there are even apps like Duolingo that helps you become more better in your English grammar, your conciseness, your theory of English. But once you have mastered the fundamentals of English, in order to improve your communication confidence, you need to practice it. That's when you can use tools like or.
Yeah, I think Mr. Lakshmi Narayanan is asking how is ORI different from others? So
Yes,
Danish?
so I asked, what are you comparing it to, right? What do you mean by others? So if you can clarify, that will help me answer the question. Another teacher mentioned that the moods of the learners cannot be analyzed in a virtual classroom. How do you overcome this? Now, when you're talking about mood in a virtual environment, it's very hard when all your students are muted and you're speaking here, you're hearing nothing. You don't know if the students are even paying attention or they're on their phones looking at WhatsApp, looking at Facebook or TikTok. We don't know that. So one best practice that I always recommend to teachers is making the students feel like it's a safe environment. Can everyone just turn on their videos? It's nice if we all can put a face to the voice. That's a great way of telling people. It's nice if we can put a face to the voice. And that's a great way of telling, hey, turn on your video. If you can do that, you can see the people's faces. So as I'm presenting this, I'm looking at everyone's faces in my screen, those at least who have their video turned on. That's helping me evaluate the mood. The other way I evaluate the mood is by testing the interactiveness. If you notice in my presentation for the last 25 minutes, I was not speaking continuously. I paused, I let you guys interact, and that's another way you can know if the mood of the classroom, are they engaged, are they learning, are they interactive? Those are two great things that you can do. Karthik mentioned as a normal learner, how can we develop our communication skills? So some of the best practices that we talked about in this presentation, right? These are the tips and techniques that you can implement today as a normal person. You can do all of these things, like when we watch that BBC video, you can make sure that you're dressed up properly, that you don't have distractions, that you have lighting in front of you, that you're speaking in a calm, composed manner, that if you're using filler words like um, ums and uhs, these can be distracting to your audience, and you can practice them. You can record yourself on a tool like Ori or from your smartphone and listen back to yourself. Those are many ways you can develop your own communication skills.
Yeah, Dr. Viknesh has something. Uh, how can this be portrayed for people located in remote areas?
That's the beauty of technology, right? If you have a tool like Ori, you can give it to a student in a remote area or in the city or anywhere in the world. In fact, with Ori, we have over 300,000 users across the globe, across geographies, across time zones who have used it and tried it out. So the beauty of technology is if you have a 2G internet connection, you can start learning and improving your skills.
So
And yes,
Dr. Palaniappan has a question. How you overcome your personal barriers as learner of English?
I practiced a lot. There's a saying that goes, right? Practice makes perfect. And so I would always put myself in front of different challenging situations. I would, if I'm in a classroom setting, I would always raise my hand to try and answer, even though my heartbeat would beat really fast. I would be scared, but I just pushed myself in stressful environments. And that's how I personally became more confident in my way of communicating. I also watched a bunch of videos on YouTube. I did Toastmasters, which is an amazing public speaking club where you go and you practice and people give you feedback and many, many things. And in fact, you can see my TED Talk where I shared the whole thing, all the things that I did to overcome my fear. So someone said that many people are not used to being online. That's true. So the first thing we can do, before we even teach people how to use technology, is teach them how to be online, and that's a whole different challenge. And I would definitely address that first. How can you become comfortable online, browsing online, before you start telling them how to use technologies and AI in order to improve?
Yes. We have another question. This is from Sudha. So hi Sudha, the question is, other than the language, what else is important in communication, especially in online classrooms?
So I think in this session, in the last 25 minutes, we went more than just language. Communication is the way you communicate, interact with your audience. And so we mentioned so many things that go even outside language, like smiling. Highly recommend people take a sticky note, make a smiley face, and stick it on your laptop. Smiling is outside of language, but it helps us communicate our ideas better. It breaks down barriers. Smiling, your body language, so the way you're dressed up, the way you have your lighting in front of you, the way you're chatting, all of this is communication skills that we just learned the best practices for beyond just language.
Okay. So we have another question from Uma Devi. How can AI help slow learners?
It is a fact that sometimes in a classroom setting, let's say we have 100 students, some are going to be really fast, some are going to be average, and some are going to take a little bit time to learn and catch up. But the thing where classroom settings don't do a disadvantage is they make everyone go through in the same way. Hey, today, this lesson, you're going to talk about calculus. Next class, we're going to talk about multivariate calculus. And everyone is expected to go in the same way in the whole semester. But if you leverage technology tools like AI, if you bring in self-paced learning from, let's say, Khan Academy, you can let the slow learners go back home, spend extra 1 hour practicing on their own time to really catch up to the fast learners. So if you have slow learners in your classroom, I would highly recommend leverage technology, use tools like Ori, use tools like Khan Academy to give resources to your students that they can leverage on their own in a self-paced manner.
Okay. We have another question from Mr. Ramanan, that students from vernacular medium have communication problem more. That is, who doesn't have English as their second language. So they are facing more problem to how to overcome this.
As I mentioned, if English is not your first language and you struggle in English, before we even talk about 21st century communication skills, I would highly recommend building that confidence in English. And the best way to do that is by learning the grammars better, by practicing with another student who's also learning. And there are tools for this. There are so many tools that help you improve your English learning skills. So I would definitely recommend doing that as a foundation before you look at using tools like Ori, before you bring them in online classroom training where you're making sure that everyone is communicating. 100%.
Yeah.
English language should be first before you help them do more advanced things like speaking English confidently.
Yeah. Once again, I request the participants who have not given your details to give your phone number and your organization name in the chat box so that we can provide you a free demo license for Ori, which I'm sure all of you would enjoy using it and further taking it to your students. So kindly give your details if you have not already given your details. Kindly give your details, that is your phone number, your name, and your organization name in the chat box so that we can get in touch with you. We have few more questions. Before going to the questions, I would like to take a photograph of all of us. So kindly request all of you to switch on your video. Video, please. Kaushik, will you take the photo?
Yeah.
Yeah. Can we all smile and show a victory symbol? Yes, thank you.
Okay.
Please tell when we are done.
Okay. Yep.
Yeah, done?
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you so much. We will continue with the questions. There are two questions which I'm clubbing together, Danish. That is, one is how to overcome stage fear, and the other one is how to avoid fillers. So over to you, Danish.
Stage fear, I think I already mentioned some of the ways of how I overcame my fear by putting myself out there in front of the stage, in front of challenging environments, by raising hands in classroom. Those are the best ways. Practice makes perfect. That's the only way to overcome your fear. Your second question, which is how to avoid filler words. So if you notice when I did my recording, right, when I was practicing that pitch, I purposely put in all those filler words like and ums. These filler words, they can be really distracting to your audience and they might reduce their trust in you. So let's see. What does Ori tell us? Filler words take us away from your message. Prepare your thoughts before beginning your sentence. So you won't say as you think what to say next. So one of the best ways is to just prepare your thoughts before you start speaking. So when someone asks me a question, you notice I pause for 2-3 seconds. I won't respond quickly. I want to make sure that I can know what my answer is before I respond to your question. So that's one big tip. Second thing is slowing down. A lot of us talk too fast. But if we can slow down, we can let our brains catch up with our mouth. Our mouth sometimes just goes on talking and goes too fast. But if we can slow our thoughts down, our brain will be able to think what's going to come next. And we will avoid using filler words like basically, so. So that's second tip, slow down. And the third tip is if you are slow, you still don't know what you're going to say, mid-sentence, take a pause. Like what I just did, I took a 2-second pause and that's okay. It's not a bad thing. Take a 2-second pause, think of the next thing you're going to say, and continue speaking. So those are 3 big tips you can do for avoiding filler words today.
Yeah, there's another question from Gomati. Is ORI focusing only on language fluency?
I wouldn't say language fluency. What I would say is your delivery skills, how you can sound more confident. Imagine you've already mastered the language. Now you're looking at building speaking mastery in that language. That is where ORI comes in. So it doesn't help you learn language mastery. It helps you master the delivery of that language so you can sound more confident.
Yeah. There is another question, interesting question from Dr. Palaniappan. Evolution of mushrooming online tools. Will they not shatter the self-learning process of a learner?
Please repeat that one again.
Evolution of mushrooming online tools. Will they not shatter the self-learning process of a learner? He feels that the online tools will shatter the self-learning process of a learner.
I think what these online tools are doing is actually helping the self-learning. Now you have students who can go to Khan Academy and just learn on their own. So I don't think it's shattering the self-learning process. In fact, sometimes many of these online tools are designed to be self-paced and for people to self-learn on their own.
Yeah. Another question from Sonia. How to overcome fear while speaking to others and how to handle seminar classes.
This overcoming, again, same principle.
Same principle.
Practice makes perfect. The more you practice, the better you get. In fact, if you're going to do a seminar, why don't you just open a Zoom room by yourself, going on it on your own, and practice for the next 10 minutes as though you're presenting your thing to yourself. That is how it feels. When you're presenting in an online seminar, everyone is muted. It's basically you're presenting to yourself. So be okay with that. How do you do that? Just turn on your video and practice by your own. There's another question who someone said, is it necessary to switch on video to conduct the online session to make it effective when other tools are in use? At the end of the day, there is no right or wrong. In your classroom, perhaps it is okay to not have video on. Like in this session, for example, it was okay not to have most of your video on. So it depends on you. As a best practice, yes. If your videos are on, it'll make it much easier to interact, much easier for the students to engage in the classroom also. Another question I'll take would be, there are so many YouTube videos and online learning platforms like NPTEL, where IIT profs teach communication skills. Why should you go for ORI? Again, there is no right or wrong answer. In today's world, there are tons of tools out there, and it's up to you to decide what is the best that you can bring to your students. If you feel that the YouTube videos or some of these other platforms are good enough for your students, then go ahead with that. If you feel that you can bring in a tool like ORI that actually goes beyond just giving theory of what is good, but also makes your students practice, and not only practice, it also gives feedback and closes that learning group of theory, practice, feedback, theory, practice, feedback. In my opinion, I know no other tool that does that. And as an educator myself, the best way for students to learn is not by watching YouTube videos. You cannot watch YouTube videos and learn communication skills. Guarantee you that. Tell a student watch 10 hours of YouTube videos on communication, they will be stuck. They will improve a little bit, but they will not become masters. If you truly want them to improve, practice makes perfect. Remember that. I've already said that 10 times. Practice makes perfect. And there are many ways of practicing. ORI is just one of those ways that you don't only practice, you get feedback, but you can even just record yourself by yourself, or you can go in front of the mirror. In fact, before ORI, I would go in front of the mirror and practice, or I would practice with my roommate. His name is Paritosh. I would tell Paritosh, I have this important presentation. Can I practice with you? That is how you improve.
Uh,
On a similar note, someone else asked, what kind of books you will refer to increase communication skills? Books and online courses will only take you so much. I would 100% recommend practicing is what actually helps you improve. But if you're still looking for books, I think there's a really nice book by the founder of TED Talks, on how to give a TED. I think something like that. I liked that book for communication skills also.
Yeah. There is another question from Andavarapu Pranita. Like, it's a big question. What is more effective as virtual class could be distracted than the offline classes could be more effective to monitor? Yes, I do agree that the discipline is more important. What if some situations are beyond control? So what is more effective? She's asking what is more effective, whether online classes, offline classes, or virtual classes.
I think it depends on what you're teaching. For example, let's take this seminar, for example, right? Yes, we could have done this online. I could have flown to Bangalore, for example. All of you could have flown to Bangalore and we could have met up in a room and we could have done this same thing online. I mean, offline. Or we can do this online. So you really have to decide on your own what is effective. Effective is not just how you're communicating your ideas, but effectiveness is also what is comfortable for the participants. What can you bring? How can you bring everyone together? So it's really depends. There's no right or wrong answer, but I know for certain there are some things that are more effective done online and there's some things that are more effective done offline. But there's a second question. What if offline is not even an option? You don't even have the option of teaching on offline. Then online is your only way. So now we have to learn how to cope up in teaching things that we were traditionally teaching offline, but now teaching them online. And we have to learn. And I hope over the last 40 minutes, I shared some of these best practices on how you can teach online as well.
Yeah, Pranita seems to be very happy with the answer. I can see you smiling. We would love to hear from you. We would love to hear your voice about the session or any other feedback or anything you need to ask. If you can raise your hands, I can unmute you. Anybody would like to share anything? A feedback? Feedback or a personal interaction with Danish? You're all, yeah, Miss Uma Devi, ma'am. Yes. Yes, ma'am. Please go ahead.
Hello.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
Yeah. In the reactions button, you have a raise hand symbol. So anybody would like to share anything with your voice? You can raise your hand. We can unmute you.
It was a very good interactive session. I look forward for some more sessions during this lockdown period. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. And for all the attendees, Shrivani, ma'am. Yes.
Hi, Dani sir. Like, you would be giving the classes to the students also?
I
Uh,
don't give classes to students in this
Communication classes. Or not like this. If after the lockdown, you would like to.
Shivani ma'am, we will get in touch with you regarding that. I have taken your request. So our team will get in touch with you regarding that. Sure.
So our team, they do that.
Yes.
For
yes. Danish is not involved in this, but our team does this. So we can talk to you regarding that. Sure. Yeah, Mr. Karthik is here to say something. So yes, Mr. Karthik.
Hi, good evening everyone, and thank you for the session. Actually, we are also using Zoom platform for teaching students as well. For theory subjects, it's quite good. Like students are also experiencing a good platform to experience a new thing. But what difficulty that we are facing is when we are teaching problems, actually we have to share the screen with them like they'll make some annotations over there. Like we have to type and show it to students and all such. Like any such suggestion, like how we can overcome these problems and we can make it effective even while teaching accounts and taxation?
One thing I want to clarify, do you not want students to make annotations on your slides? Like, is that distracting?
No, we can, like I am disabling it. Like how to make this practical subject more effective over these platforms, what you said, Zoom, WebEx, and other such platforms. Like how to make it more effective, because what I'm doing is I have divided students into 5 each. Like I'm teaching them a practical subject, because if we consider every student in one single frame, I think they may cause problem to us, like in terms of disturbance, annotations, every such. So is there any such suggestion that you can make it out?
Yeah, some things I personally do, right? I also teach a grade, and I set up rules. Hey, let us come up with etiquettes of our class. We have etiquettes of an in-person class, but now we're not in in-person class. In my first class, I said, we're going to set up rules of etiquettes of our class. And I want you guys to tell me what are the best practices. And themselves, they were telling me, we're not going to spam the chat. We're not going to annotate. We're going to listen to the teacher. We will raise our hands. They themselves were telling me. And I was impressed how students already know some of these etiquettes. And of course, they forgot that in the class. So I would bring up that sheet again, and I would bring up that sheet again the next week. So that's one way I have done. But specific to your question of teaching that practical skill, I wouldn't be an expert. I have not taught a practical skill like accounting in Zoom, so I would not know. Communication skills, yes.
Yeah, thank you, Danish.
Welcome. Cool, let's take one or two more and then we can call it a day.
Yeah.
Please go ahead and raise your hands so that either your feedback or any of your questions. So I think that
there is an hand raise from Mr. Palaniyappan.
Yes. Kaushik, yeah.
Yeah. Danish, I think am I audible?
Yes, you are, sir.
Yeah. Yes. Thank you, Kaushik. So this session was very interactive, and I learned the input from here is that the learner engagement while handling the online classes, the way the chat box was used and how we were able to communicate and give the answers, responses, how it was clarified, that was done very beautifully. That's a wonderful feedback I can give about this wonderful session. The point I want to add is that as a teacher from K.S. Rangasamy College of Technology, as the English professor also, I have handled in Zoom the oral presentation evaluation for a set of students. And what Karthik has said, that how to overcome students lacking in the etiquette. So first initial class, initial session, but later when you these etiquettes, they cooperate with us and they let you.
I think we lost you towards the end. Thank you for your feedback on the session. I didn't get your question though. If you can try one more time, if your audio is not working, maybe you can put it in the chat box again.
Dr. Palaniyappan, we couldn't hear you properly, so if you can put your question in the chat box.
Great. Let's take one more and then we can call it a day.
Yes.
Yes.
So we have a hand raised from Mrs. Usha Rani.
Yeah. Am I audible?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. Good evening, all of you. And thank you, Mr. Danish. And thank you, Vijayan and Sriram Venkatraman. And hi, everyone. This was a wonderful session, of course. And I just would like to know how to inculcate that interest of the students. How do you get them online first? Bringing them online only is a main setback for us. In fact, the students who are there in the city, I think they are well aware of. But the students who hail from rural background, it's very difficult catching hold of them. And they do not have the technology. So how do we reach out to them? In fact, to be even more honest, they don't even have the mobile phones. So how do you get to these people? So technology doesn't reach So everyone.
Those are tough questions that go beyond what I would have expertise in. As I mentioned, I think someone mentioned in the chat that how do you support the students? And that's really hard. Before we can even be talking about best practices in communication or virtual classroom, we need to figure out how can we get technology or even 2G connection or mobile phones to these students. That goes beyond my expertise, so I would not have an answer to that. But I think I have an answer to one of your questions, which is how do you engage the students? I think what I have done and what I've seen as best practices by having constant communication with the parents. The parents can be the biggest supporters in today's time. And if you can set the right expectation with the parents, because they are there in person with the students, if you can do that and make a nice kind of partnership with the parents, that's going to go a long way. And thank you for your feedback. Cool.
Thank you. Yeah. Thank you, Usha ma'am, and thank you one and all who has graced their presence this evening. Our team will get in touch with you to help you onboard your demo ORI license very soon in a couple of days. So I'm sure all of you would be excited to use ORI. Sunny, can you give us a yes if you would like to have the demo? If you're very interested in having the demo, can you give us a yes in the chat box? We will be very happy to see that. Yes? Yeah. Wow. We see a lot of yes. That's great. We feel overwhelmed. Thank you so much. Almost all are very interested in using this new innovation. We would love to get in touch with you. Our onboarding executives will get in touch with you and guide you through how to onboard ORI. And we would love to hear constructive feedback from educators like you, so that you are our gateways to take it to the students and bring in the revolutionary in the field of communication. That is how we can take the communication world class. So I'm sure all of you would welcome this idea. Let the students get benefited, because providing a communication coach to each and every student is commercially and practically challenging. Whereas ORI will act as a mini pocket-sized communication coach for each and every student, where it is going to provide them tailor-made solutions for them. It's going to stay with them forever. They will not have the fear of judgment because the machine or the AI is going to interact with them. So yes. And once again, thank you so much for gracing your presence, and thank you, Danish. You were great today, and all the participants have enjoyed. Yes. I have recorded the program. Yes, sure. MC17, I'm not getting your name. Yes, definitely we can share the recording. So once again, this is Kaushik. Myself, my name is Yavana, and Danish. Saying a very, temporary bye to you. We will get in touch with you. Thank you. And have a great evening.
Bye.